Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It is me, your host, Joe Slepsky. I'm excited to be back this week. For listeners, if you heard last week, I had taken a tumble and had a little difficulty in breathing and getting all that out last week. So I'm happy to say I'm alive and well. Genuine thank you for the well wishes that I got from some of you listeners. It really meant a lot to hear from you. That one, you're listening, and two, you cared enough to reach out and make sure I was okay. Update: it wasn't ghosts that tripped me. I actually, I did. There's a divot in the grass. I was explaining. I was walking through the scene of the crime to a friend, and I realized, oh, there it is, and it's in the grass, so it's hard to see, but it is a legit divot, and that is how my foot went out from under me, and I fell. I'm still having severe rib cage trouble. I have a feeling, it's like either an actual cracked rib or just severely bruised. But, it hurts. It hurts to breathe and laugh. So it's a good thing this show's not funny, because that's the pain. But I'm in much better shape than last week. Last week it was literally everything was swollen, and so I appreciate you guys for helping me get through. Now this week I'm recording a couple this week extra because I'll be doing a little traveling over the next week. So if anything crazy in the Joe world happens between now and like 2 weeks from now, I won't know about it, but I will know about that awesome Hasbro Pulse drop the other day. What was that, over Friday and Saturday? Was it Saturday morning they had the video, and the big drop was on Saturday afternoon? That was great. There was some cool stuff in there, man. I bought everything. I did not sign up yet for the HasLab Sky Striker. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Hasbro, they had their big, yearly, their Comic-Con, Pulse, live stream for a bunch of their properties, at least, if not all of them. They bunch of Transformers stuff on Friday and a ton of Star Wars stuff. And they did G.I. Joe on Saturday morning. And man, I was happy with everything they showed us. They showed us, the Killer Croc, which is like a big deluxe set with a gigantic crocodile rather, named Fiona, I think Fiona was the name, which is awesome. I thought Killer Croc looked great. Zero complaints. The Target then also revealed the pre-orders and it was weird because it was Target, but I think those pre-orders showed up on Pulse 2 for a little bit. So I'm not sure how exclusive they were, but it was the Tiger Force Outback. And then is it the Night Force bat? I think it was. Or there were two bats that were involved, and I apologize for not being exact with that. But I was able to snag all those. The only one that I wasn't able to snag, no, I did get that's right. I got a Croc because eventually it was on Amazon too. That's why I don't think it was exclusive. But I did. Between all the various places, I was able to secure me one of everything I wanted. I was very excited to see the O-rings come back. They announced inexpensive. It is expensive. 2-pack. It's not cheap. Of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow O-ring style. It's Commando Snake Eyes versus V1 Storm Shadow. I think it was V1. And it comes in like a case. So it's not just like carded. It's like I don't know if you would consider it a display case, but it's like a 2-pack kind of a thing. It wasn't cheap, especially for O-rings, but starting somewhere. And then the biggest news was they also finally made Zartan, the color change Zartan, pre-orderable, which is fantastic for us here in the States. Then they did the HasLab Sky Striker, which was fantastic. And it is modeled after the F-14 Tomcat. I guess between Top Gun and is it Northrop Grumman who made the deal with Transformers to allow it. They're allowing the merchandising of that specific style, so that it's more accurate to the original release of the Sky Striker. And it looks awesome. And it is for the 3 3/4 size, because I think those classified size would be just huge. So it comes with Ace and a co-pilot, and then there's the bonuses of, which is pretty great. Scarlet in her pilot gear, which is straight out of the cartoon. Then a Night Force ripcord, and the final bonus, if like a certain number of backers, I think it was 18K, if 18,000 backers sign up, you get all the way down to a couple of deck hands, like assistant, like engineers, like flight engineers, with the light up. What do they call those? Little flashlights. They're not flashlights though. But, like to wave the Sky Striker down the USS Flag runway. And this thing looks great. It looks fantastic. It looks as good as all those other HasLab things look, which is always fantastic. So I have a feeling I'm going to pull the trigger on it, but for me, my collection and just, my space and stuff, that would just definitely be one of those that sits in a box for a good long time. But then my brain goes, but whenever am I else going to get this? I don't even know how to say that. Whenever am I else going to get this? Those aren't even words. But if I don't pull the trigger on it now, I'm never going to get it like secondary market. And it looks great. It looks really great. So I'm all for it. I'm real positive on all that stuff that they showed. I thought it all looked really great and really relatively easy to get. It really was. It wasn't that hard. I do want to know, how do people find, and I work with my, friends of the show, Paul and Jeremiah. We have a little text chat going on, so we always share links and stuff. But when they, for example, on Target, when they first put stuff on, like they just release it, it's never searchable under the words like G.I. Joe or classified. It's always under some weird nickname. So I'm always curious how people find the link so fast, because I can never find it doing a normal search. I always have to get a link and then click through to it. Anyway, that's just my problems. So we're back this week, guys, after that big Pulse reveal, and that was exciting. And before we dig into this week's episode, which is, of course, G.I. Joe number 102, because we're doing Joe and Joe Illustrated, we're going to hear from our sponsors, the Movie and a Meal podcast.
Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie? It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show.
Yeah, and speaking of movies, the Snake Eyes movie just came out for wide release on home video. I know it was on demand for, I think maybe for like a month. But what was it, like 2 weeks ago or a week ago? They just released the physical DVD Blu-ray release of it. I will snap that up. I think I'm going to wait a little bit till it gets a little discount. It just didn't feel full price for that. And I don't think there's going to be a rush on it. But, maybe it'll be a Black Friday sale somewhere. However, we still want to support it. We still want to show it some love. So Snake Eyes is out there on Blu-ray and DVD. Get your Snake Eyes fix. And out there, have you guys been doing the whole it's Halloween, so you gotta watch Halloween scary movies? I've certainly been watching a ton. I watched a really great documentary. Really, really great documentary. Because, this is Halloween week. On Scary Movies on Shudder. It's a two-parter, and I think the second part is just unused footage. Like, they had so much good stuff from the first movie that they just literally cut together a whole new movie. It's on Shudder, and it's a 4-hour documentary about horror movies. You'll find it on there. It's really easy to find, and it's one of those talking head interviews where it's about the movie, slasher flicks or scary movies of the 80s. And it's not just slashers, it's supernatural. They cover everything. 4 hours, you get a lot to cover. But it's all talking head stuff, but it's with the real people. You know, it's with, John Carpenter shows up, and Freddy Krueger shows up, and I'm blanking on everybody's name, but all the special effects guys that worked on those movies. Joe Dante is in there. A lot of the Scream Queens show up, and then a lot of like more, Joe Bob Briggs is in there, and a lot of like more modern, horror commentators show up and walk you through it. And they go year by year and movie by movie and give a few minutes on each movie. And they cover a lot of really, really, really great stuff. And I should give the name of it. So let me really, really, really quick, going to go to my Shudder app. If you guys don't have Shudder and you like, if you like horror movies, or at least, kind of tangential, it's really good. I think it's only $5 or $7 a month, and there's always something good to watch on it. I genuinely mean that. If you're in a horror, it's called In Search of Darkness. That's what it's called, In Search of Darkness, Part 1 and Part 2. And they're like 253-minute movies, and they're great. They're really great. Oh, they get in all the Larry Cohen movies and all the trauma movies. It's awesome. It's really good. So that's your Halloween stuff this week. So now,
You were saying?
that's right, I was saying, we're going to look at comic books that were on the shelf the same month as G.I. Joe 102. Now, this has a cover date of July 1990. So, of course, that means it was on the stands during March of 1990. But other books over at DC Comics in July 1990. Let's see what's notable on the shelf that sticks out to me. Ooh, the Flash Special, Volume 1. This is a cool book because it for the first time, I felt for the first time since Crisis, they were reaching back to the history of Flash, because they were doing Wally West, and and we're establishing Wally as the Flash. And so then they put this, and they weren't like denying that Barry was there and Jay Garrick, etc. But this Flash special spanned all the generations. So this was kind of an effort to get everyone remembering and thinking of it generationally. Like you make a change, you want everyone to focus on Wally, and that makes complete sense. This also, 1990 was the Flash TV show was about to debut, or already had debuted. So that makes sense. They'd be putting more Flash stuff on the market. But I remember liking this Flash special, and it gets overlooked a lot because it's it's of no consequence, but it's a good fun read, and I believe that's a Kubert cover, if my eyes are not betraying me right now. Over in Green Arrow 34, he is in handcuffs. I don't remember why he's in handcuffs, but I will remember this. That run of Green Arrow, I've said it before, is just great. They've recently I know they've done new reissues of this whole Mike Grell run. And that goes from Longbow Hunters through issue number 1 all the way through, he quote unquote dies around like issue 85 or something like that. So that's, we'll just round up and say it's 80 issues of good Green Arrow goodness that I know they've collected recently, and it's really worth it. It's a solid series. Justice League America number 40. This is that the coda to that great Despero. It's funny. I've always said Despero because as a kid that just made sense to me. Like, whoa, Despair, he's Despero. It's probably Despero because there's no I in it. But whether it's Despair or Despero, I don't know. But I've always said Despero. But this is the coda to that story. So they all think that Mr. Miracle is dead. But I'm pretty sure even in this comic book, they show him, the actual Mr. Miracle, flying through space. He was with Manga. Wasn't he with Manga Khan? He was doing something with that intergalactic, like a group of space hucksters. And I'm pretty sure it was Manga Khan at that point running, like with Elron, the robot. Because when he comes back, he brings Elron with him. Yeah, I believe that's the case. Yeah. Ms. Tree Quarterly. Ms. Tree, or speaking of pronunciations, Mystery, really good. Max Allen Collins, I believe so. And just good. Oh, no, hold on. Yeah. Just good, solid, like detective crime stuff. Stuff like this, stuff like Maze Agency. I really like when it's well done. It's hard. I will say this. It's harder to do a comic book about normal people having mysteries or having adventures or whatever, because normal people don't have flashy costumes, and visually things don't imprint as easily on your brain. So it's much harder to track characters in stories that aren't about garishly clad people. Does that make sense? So when you can easily, if you can easily, and G.I. Joe doesn't have that problem because everyone has a distinct costume. G.I. Joe runs into that problem when everyone's costume starts to look the same. G.I. Joe, the movie, I'm talking about Rise of Cobra. But Mystery and like Maze Agency and those kind of books like that, those more indie-ish titles that tell more normal stories. They're still adventures, but people in normal street clothes. It's a little harder because then your artists also then draw them in different street clothes. So you're seeing them in different looks. And it's always a little harder for those books to break out and be really, really popular. When they do, it works great. But there's a lot of really good, like B-level books that aren't necessarily superhero stuff that, at least for this reader, always, I overlooked it when I was a kid, but I've read some Mysteries as an adult, and it's pretty good. What else do we got here? A bunch of Star Trek, Starman, Superboy. That's a great Kevin McGuire cover with Superboy being pelted by kryptonite rain. That's awesome. Ken Stacy, The Tempest Fugitive. Ken Stacy's a really talented painter. Really love his stuff. It's always very, very, very distinctive. If you've never, I think I've talked about Ken Stacy before. If you've never seen his work, when you see it, you'll know it and you'll start to recognize it pretty well. And, Joker visits Batman for a couple issues in 450 and 451. That's always exciting. So, yeah, I think that's it for DC Comics.
You were saying?
I was. Now we're going to go to Marvel. Now, here we go. Marvel Comics. First book that I saw that caught my attention is a book of controversy, everybody. There's controversy happening here. Let me scroll down to find it. X-Men Annual number 14. This is Gambit's first appearance. Or is it? Because Gambit is in this book, but Gambit had not yet been released onto the world in the actual X-Men book. Somebody was given bad information, and if you go to next month, you see that Uncanny X-Men 266 is released, which is everyone considers the first appearance of Gambit. However, Gambit, at least a guy that looks exactly like Gambit and is wearing Gambit's clothing, is in this issue because there were signals, wires were crossed, and the issue introducing Gambit hadn't actually been produced, and they were making this annual early. This is a big crossover, by the way, with with Fantastic Four and X Factor, and it's Days of Future Present, Days of Future Past stuff. So X-Men Annual 14 for years was overlooked. People were thinking that Jim Lee at Gambit was the first appearance. This technically, as we see here, came out a month before then. So while he didn't do anything in this, he is in it. this is one of his first appearances. We'll say one of his. So X-Men Annual 14 has been rocketing up the price charts. So if you ever see this book and it's at a good price, grab it, because that person, they don't know what it is all about. X-Men Annual 14. It's got a great Art Adams cover, and it's got Rachel, like Phoenix's daughter Rachel, and then it's got the future version of Franklin Richards from the Days of Future Past, like his mutant adult wearing the mutant overcoat look, not overalls. And then it's got, I believe that's baby Franklin from when he's with the Power Pack. And they're in a lot of psychic pain due to, I believe that's Ahab, the slave master, or master of the hounds rather, from Future, and from like the Future X-Men stuff. So it's a cool book, and it's fun, and it's one of those fun little, no, this is really his first appearance. You should check it out. So X-Men Annual 14. Another one we'll work backwards this month. Wolverine number 27. It's got a great Jim Lee cover. The story itself's decent. It's fine. But this cover of Wolverine leaping out with some like speed lines and red, orange, yellow explosion kind of coloring to the back of it. This cover was used everywhere. It was the cover to his video game, his NES video game. It's used in all kinds of promo stuff around this time. You've seen it, you know it. It's, his arms fully extended out. It's a really well drawn, exciting piece. So that makes a lot of sense. But you've all seen this cover a million times. What else do we got here? Let's see. And what if the Fantastic Four lost the Trial of Galactus? Never read the Fantastic Four and the Trial of Galactus. It's really cool. Basically, Galactus had been ill, and Reed Richards saved his life. And the reason Reed Richards saved his life is because he couldn't, morality. Like, it's a living being, got to save him, even though he does bad things. What we consider bad things by eating planets. Reed was still in a position to save Galactus's life. Well, the Shi'ar and the Kree and the Skrull and all the galaxy's races didn't like that, and they put Reed on trial. And, basically Reed made the argument that, and these are all John Byrne issues, Reed made the argument that Galactus is a force of nature. Like, there's no life, essentially saying there's no life to save. He's necessary. He's as primal as life and death itself. He was exonerated, but it was a great multi-part story from John Byrne. So this issue, basically, I forget how this one ends, but it's a what if, so it always ends poorly. But this basically says, what if Reed lost that court case? Which is really cool. They're reprinting all this what if stuff now, and I urge you guys to read it. They did just put out the omnibus, omnibuy. I was about to say omnibuy, and then I was about to say omnibus, so I said omnibus, which isn't really right. I know the what if omnibus of the original, and I think it's only half of them. I think it's like the first 30 or so, and I think the first issue went like 45 issues. I don't know, maybe it is everything, but it's an omnibus of the first round of what if. It's really, really good. Those what ifs. I love the what if stories. I liked the animated series. I have some issues with it here and there, but overall I thought they did a really good job with it. I just love the idea of the what if stuff. New Warriors #1. This was the big super teen. This is Marvel's 10 years later, Marvel's answer to the new Teen Titans, which Teen Titans was DC's answers to the X-Men. So, it's all cyclical. Let's get real. They debuted over in Thor either last month or 2 months ago, and it has Nova, Night Thrasher, Speedball, Namorita, Marvel Boy, was he calling himself Marvel Boy? Yeah, he was calling himself Marvel Boy at the time. We're talking about Vance Astro, who has had multiple timelines, and he becomes an astronaut, and then he lives in the future with the Guardians of the Galaxy. But Vance Astro, Marvel Boy. And of course, Firestar. I don't understand why Firestar is not a bigger comic book character. Can we take a second and talk about this? Firestar, attractive redhead who had her own cartoon in the 80s, who lights herself on fire, not just using fire, but using microwaves, which they used to great effect in the Avengers series in the 90s, where Kurt Busiek basically was saying that had the potential to give her cancer, which was a great real world like storyline that they dug into. Why is Firestar not a bigger character? Because she should be, and she's got a fabulous costume. I don't know. I'm a Firestar fan, and I don't understand it. Don't understand why she's not a bigger character. And everyone knows who she is. That's the thing. From that cartoon, everyone knows who Firestar is, and yet she's never in demand. Like, her back issues don't really go for much. Like, there's no big, there was a Firestar miniseries. Nobody cares. Just what is happening? I don't know. What else do we got here? Oh, Marvel graphic novel, the Guns of the Savage line. I've never read this, but I love that cover though. That looks really, really great. Looks really great. Todd McFarlane does the cover to Marvel Age number 90. It's teasing his new Spider-Man series, of course. That is, we are months away from that dropping. Let's see here. Yeah, that is not out yet. We are just months away from the new Spider-Man series, and the big one with him crouching in the cover, which then they did the Snake Eyes homage to. Yeah, and Fantastic Four, they have that crossover annual too. So yeah, so that's a lot going on. It's a lot of fun stuff going on. This was kind of my meat era of Marvel. This was a big time. I was just getting into Marvel at this time and learning all this stuff. So all this stuff really imprinted pretty well. All right. Yeah, that's it. Oh, Captain America's fighting drug dealers.
You were saying?
And now, over in the movie theater, March 2nd, 1990. G.I. Joe 102. G.I. Joe's teamed up with with the October Guard as the movie The Hunt for Red October hits the screens. Could this have been synergy? It had to have been synergy. Like, these guys are smart enough. They had to have known that because The Hunt for October was a big movie. I remember being excited about it, and I had never read the book. I was swept up in Hunt for Red October mania. I picked the book up after seeing the movie. I read the book, loved it. I bought the video game. Actually, my copy of the book came from buying the video game. That's how much I loved it. I just saw the movie and was like, I want to play this PC game. Bought the Hunt for Red October PC game. In it was a copy of the Hunt for Red October book. And then I went on to read every Tom Clancy book until he died. But this is out the same month as the Joes are teamed up with the October Guard. That had to be synergy. It has to be. Absolutely has to be. On March 9th, we've got a bunch of movies on March 9th. Oh, friend Reggie Hudlin, a friend of mine from the comics, from Golden Apple Comics out here. What one super talented dude. Very nice man. Did I say he's super talented? Because he's super frigging talented. And he's having a ton of great success lately. And I am so, so happy for him. And the origins are this little film called House Party, which I randomly rewatched. It showed up in a you would want to watch this thing recommendation. I'm like, yeah, I'll hit play on House Party. Play, get it, pun intended. Man, is House Party a lot of fun. Forgot how many people, just like everybody's in that movie. And it is so fun. Such a good time. House Party, March 9th. Fabulous. Same week, Joe versus the Volcano. I saw that in the theaters. I remember being in love with that movie. I thought it was so great and subversive and funny. I don't know how much it holds up, but I just remember at the time thinking I was cooler than everyone else because I got it. I got what it was saying about life and society. The non-Hulu version of The Handmaid's Tale, so the original movie with Natasha Richardson and Faye Dunaway and Robert Duvall is in this. I've never seen this version of it, but I'm assuming it's about the same stuff the TV show is about. See, Bad Influence of Rob Lowe and James Spader. That is on one of the streamers right now because I keep getting a recommendation that I would like to watch it. I'm sure that I would. On March 16th, Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer. Yes, he's basically the blind master, guys, from the Arashikage clan. And he's a blind ninja, pretty much. And he has to solve some kind of crime. Terry O'Quinn's in it from Lost. And he is, he's pretty great. Rest in peace, Rutger. He's really pretty great. Blind Fury is a pretty entertaining movie from TriStar Pictures. Let's see, Blue Steel. This is from Catherine Bigelow. Catherine Bigelow, who gave us, Black Hawk Down, right? Or not Black Hawk Down. The Bomb Squad movie. That was her big one. But before that, though, she did After Dark, which, way before that. And I think it was before this one. So I think we might have even talked about After Dark on this show. But I didn't realize Catherine Bigelow did Blue Steel. This is with Jamie Lee Curtis. She's a cop, like a female cop. I've never seen Blue Steel, but man, Catherine Bigelow is talented. And After Dark is awesome. They were talking about After Dark in that horror documentary I was watching. So, man, Lambada, The Forbidden Dance. Lambada, the movie, came out this month. Also, Lord of the Flies, Nuns on the Run with Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane. Wow, okay, March 23rd. So you're picking up G.I. Joe 102 off the stands. You're coming home and you're about to tell your family how great it is, and all your sister wants to talk about is this movie about a prostitute with a heart of gold called Pretty Woman. March 23rd. You're like, no. I got October Guard showing up. Pretty Woman. That's a huge movie. Opportunity Knocks with Dana Carvey. That I absolutely saw in the theater. That's a absolute no-brainer. I was there for a Dana Carvey movie. Side Out, and I think that's about volleyball. I think that's a volleyball movie. Comedy, sports, drama. Yep, about a beach volleyball competition. Oh, that had to be terrible. Oh, on the 30th, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The first one, New Line. That's huge. Yeah, that's great. To this day, I think those costumes look so good. They just look perfect. They look like, they've aged a little bit, but for the most part, they look pretty good. It's a pretty entertaining movie. So, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot going on in March of 1990. That's a big year for it. So that's it.
You were saying?
And now,
mass is ready.
Okay, Destro, we're going to get into it. G.I. Joe 102. Cover by Lee Weeks. We've got, this is the new look October Guard. They're all running. So last month we had them. We also featured the October Guard. This had to be a Hunt for Red October crossover month. I'm not even joking. Because we got the October Guard featured on both covers 2 months in a row. 101 and 102. Last month featuring the new October Guard. This month it says teaming up with the October Guard. There is not a G.I. Joe member in sight on either one of these issues. This was absolutely a Hunt for Red October crossover, purposeful crossover. So it's a good looking cover. They're running, they're in action. Lee Weeks' art looks very, very Joe Kuberty. There's an overlay on this in yellow of a hammer and sickle, obviously for Russian, for USSR. I don't think I ever noticed what that overlay was until today. I just don't remember that, noticing what that is. It's the same kind of overlay they did with Storm Shadow and his hatch marks. What was it, 6 issues ago? Maybe it was during the Snake Eyes trilogy. Like that kind of overlay. Like it might have even been like a zip tone color hold or something. It looks weird. I'm in my head. So if this were Photoshop, what you would do is you would do this, and then you would do one next to it with the exact same hammer and sickle, everything else the same, except it wouldn't be an overlay. It would be a layer on the background, and it would be behind them and like in a solid yellow. And you would compare the two, and you would say, okay, boss, which one do you like? Because to be honest, I'm not sure, but it's funny. I don't know that I ever pieced it together. I don't know if I ever looked this closely, but yeah. So there's a hammer and sickle overlaying the cover.
Yo, Joe!
Stan Lee presents. What did he say? Larry Hama is the squad leader. Mark Bright is the cannoneer. Randy Emberlin is the forward observer. Rick Parker is the point man. Bob Sharon, color bearer. Bobby Chase, platoon leader. And Tom DeFalco is the top gun. I enjoy that when they have fun with the credits box like that. That's good. especially for this show, because I know, I get it. I do the same thing every week. Get off my back. So the Joes and the guard are escaping their wreckage of the plane when Darklon attacked them while they were landing. So they're fleeing into the jungle. So this first page is just a lot of narrative catch up. Remember, the Joes are in their Desert Fox, and the guard are in their they call it, what do they call it later? A BDM, or there's a whatever this vehicle is that they're in it. But what's interesting to me, and we actually find out, I think on the second page, is that at this point in time, actually, the Cobras or the Sierra Gordons, they actually don't know the G.I. Joe's there. They all, because it was a Russian plane, so they know Russia / surmise October Guard is there. They actually don't know that the G.I. Joes are involved, which is kind of neat.
Yo, Joe!
And the Joes are pulling up the rear, and Jay gives us an update that Destro's stooge Darklon is backing his demon out of the trees that he crashed into. So Darklon's in a high-speed pursuit. And he's calling for help. Basically, they got to get moving into the jungle. There's a lot of action in this, and the whole issue, Mark Bright does a pretty solid job with speed lines and keeping everything moving. Because this is a chase. This whole issue is just a chase issue, and they do a good job of no one's really ever standing still in the first 3/4 of the book. At a certain point everyone stops, but. For the most part, there's a lot of movement, even in this small panel. You look at this last panel on this page where it's, was it Misha and Gorky, the two of the new guys. Gorky's the one that was hitting on Lady J with wearing a beret like Flint's. Even in that, there's very little background behind them, especially with the word balloons, and they still put speed lines in to, like, they're looking for moments to make sure that they're all on the move, and that's good.
Yo, Joe!
A lot, there's a lot of narrative lifting, but it's all done well. It's all done in service of soldiers, experienced dudes, kind of just making sure they all know the situation, instead of no one's dummy here, no one's, like, they're talking about it basically. With Roadblock and Muskrat talking, like casting doubts on this whole mission, and what they're doing is they're filling us in on what it is. There's no, like, Muskrat's not saying, Roadblock, tell me again, why are we doing this? Like, that's not what's happening. Larry's too good of a writer to do that, and so I appreciate that. And usually the Joes do really well with that. It's only when they do stuff like introduce those two little girls in a couple issues back at the pit, where you get completely brand new people, where you get the more like, I don't know what's going on here, and then somebody has to explain it to them. But usually when it is like two seasoned Joes, it's a good job. It's done well that they have more conversations instead of explanations. But everyone's getting fired on, and as there's a little break in the woods, the October Guard vehicle gets hit by some missiles that were fired by Darklon.
Yo, Joe!
BMP. That's what they're calling the Crimson Guard, the October Guard. Sorry, the October Guard vehicle, a BMP. So that took some hits, and it's not going to last long. So the Joes are faced with an issue here, because the Desert Fox is loaded up full and the BMP is loaded up full. Everyone's full. Remember their plane was shot, so they don't have a lot of options here. So the Joes drive past the October Guard, and we have a lot of discussions here of like Dinah saying, "What are you staring at? We would have left them behind if the situation had been reversed," because the Joes drive past them and keep going on getaway. She says combat is never anything but impossible decisions. The October Guard's trying to get the vehicle running again, but they're pretty much screwed, and the Joes got to keep the mission going. So that's where we leave on this issue, and it's a good choice, and it's also a good moment to set up for what happens in the next page, narrative wise.
Yo, Joe!
But before then, we have to talk about the uncanny action in this ad for the Uncanny X-Men NES game, guys, from LJN. Now the fantastic gang of heroes, Wolverine, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, Ice, Spaceman, Space, they put a space in Iceman, are at your command to save the entire human race. As Professor Xavier, you must choose. So you were Xavier in this game? I never got that. You must choose the right X-Men to complete your colossal mission, pun, to stop the evil mutants. For uncanny and explosive Nintendo action and strategy, X marks the spot. Did you guys ever play this game? I did. Man, did I rented it from the video store. I still remember it being there. It was the video store on 111th Street in Worth, Illinois, right next to Walgreens, which eventually became a bar, and it was a bar that catered towards people of short stature, and I'm not joking. But there was a video store right next to it, and we used to go there all the time, and they had this game. And I remember either the first time I rented it was either always out, or I got it home and it wouldn't work, and I was so upset. And eventually I was able to rent it, and then I returned it, and then eventually they called my mom and said there were late fees on it. I'm like, Mom, it's the X-Men game. I returned it. I'm not going to steal an X-Men game. I remember there being drama over the X-Men NES game, but man, did I think that game sucked. I think it was terrible, but God, man, is it awesome though that we had an X-Men NES game that featured this many dudes in 1990. I mean, this was the legit team, and I think that game was terrible. I had the PC game, which was the Fall of the Mutants, and that came out before that would have came. Well, it probably would have came out right around this time. And that game was terrible, but better. And they were promising that there was going to be an add-on that you could mail away for. And it was the mail-on was something to do with Magneto. And I never did get around to mailing away for it. But yeah, the X-Men NES game. Anyway, diversion over. So Larry sets up the drama of Flint saying, the Desert Fox is overloaded. I've got to be responsible for my own people. So now you get to this next page where it's Muskrat saying, you can't shift the responsibility to us, Flint. Roebuck says, we'd go back for him. And Jay's upset with Flint. She says, you throw in with people, you have to stick by them, even if you see one of them as a threat to your macho self-image. And he's like, man, you think they'd come back for us? And she says, does it even really matter? And he realizes she's right. So basically, he didn't like them because was it Gorky? Who's not Gorky? Gorky, the new guy, the guy that was hitting on Lady J. What is his name? Gorky. Yeah, he doesn't like him because of Gorky. He took the opportunity to say, well, we'll ditch him because but because Flint's awesome, he realizes the right thing to do is to go back and get him. So they haul back and say, jump on. I will say this though. I know they're loaded heavy and everything, but realistically, there's 4 people. So let's say with gear, 250 pounds apiece. I feel like Desert Fox should be able to hold an extra 1,000 pounds. It doesn't strike me as being too much. Like, we've all loaded people into cars. I don't know. Maybe not. But I get it though. I get it. And I love the quandary that Larry sets up for everybody here. Of not only who goes back for who, because what's best for the mission, and also personal reasons, because the guy was hitting on Lady J, but then also because they're taking them on, all of them are now at bigger risk of being caught. Yo, Joe! So there's a lot of good stuff there. Speaking of good stuff, this first panel with all these speed lines, this is what I'm talking about, where it's the combined squad of the Joes and the guard shooting back at Darklon, and Mark Bright doesn't miss the opportunity to put a bunch of speed lines in there, so we know that they're moving, that they're hauling butt. Great animation around the gun flares. It's a really fun panel, and that they choose to kind of put it like directly at us. It's a really, really strong and powerful, because then when you cut to the shot of the front panel. And I love also that they put Gorky in the middle seat. Gorky couldn't get in there's no world in which Gorky is drawn in the back of that truck, the Desert Fox. There's no world where that's drawn. Absolutely, Gorky gets in and sits on Lady J's lap. That is the only place to put him. That is dramatically and thematically the only place to put Gorky. So when you flip to that though, and everyone's hair is, Lady J's hair is blowing and, they're still in motion. But when you flip to it without those lines, which he doesn't use here, it slows it down for you. And it slows it down because this is a personal moment. Because Gorky's like, he's very sexy when she talks like that, no? It's proving Flint's fear is correct, but also, of course, it was the right thing to do, stop and help them. And it just slows down, and it just slows all the action down, which then carries over to this middle panel. And then we pick back up the heat and the action and the speed. So it's almost like all the gunfire in the first panel buys us time to have some character experiences for the middle two. Then you get more action in the bottom two. And in this case, they're the Joes take out the first vehicle that's following them. And they finally were identified as being Joes.
Yo, Joe!
So Darklon sees one of his vehicles explode, and one of the Razorbacks explode, and so he's it's just like chase talk, and we come up to a canyon. So there's just a big crevasse in the road, and Flint. Now this is because Flint's masculinity is being threatened by Gorky. Flint doesn't even hesitate. He says, "Too much vacillating going on here." And we see him pull a Fast and Furious, shifts and hits the gas. He says, once you decide on a course of action,
Yo, Joe!
You have to stick by it. And he takes that Desert Fox, as they say here, like Evel Knievel, and he jumps the Snake River Canyon here. It says, what are you getting so upset about? Evel Knievel did the same stunt over Snake River, and that was wider. Smartly... And I appreciate this. In this third panel, the looks on everyone's faces are great. The third panel, Bright deftly draws or realistically puts that the landing edge, like the side they're landing on, is sitting like, let's say 20 meters shorter than the ramp. So it's not like the magical everything's the same level and somehow the car gets a jump. And somehow without a ramp it goes flying in the air. But the side of the mountain that they jumped off of is, let's say, 20 meters higher than the side they have to land on. So it does actually give it a feel of, they could have done that. That's not a imaginary made up move just because we needed it to happen. So I like that a lot. I don't know whether that's a script instruction or just something that Mark decided to draw, but I like it. And it really, really sells what they did here.
Yo, Joe!
And then the Razorback crashes because it's like twice the size and probably 3/4 of the speed that it can get up. And that crashes. So that shows us what would have happened had Flint judged incorrectly. So now they drive off into the woods. There's a perfectly placed stick with a skull on it. And it's referred to a medicine pole. And one of the drivers says, those pilgrims are good as dead. See that medicine pole? That's a Tukaro boundary marker. And the Russians and the Joes have just crossed into Tukaro country. Now, do you guys remember? As soon as I read this, I'm like, Tukaro? We know the Tukaros. Oh, yeah, we do.
Yo, Joe!
Rakondo was best friend with the Tukaros. We've met the Tukaros before. So I'm like, Joes are in pretty good shape here. Meanwhile, in Millville, let's catch up on Cobra Commander. And we see what's happening. And Cobra Commander and Fred 13, so it's XXIII, Fred 13, they have basically brainwashed the entire town. They've got people numbered a la Squid Game. Everyone's wearing their Squid Game numbers. Mutt's uncle is number 257. We see what happens when he gets a phone call from the outside world, and it's actually someone calling in from the pit. Cobra's monitoring it and everything. And we basically learn that due to the susceptibility of all these people in Millville kind of feeling, left out by society, and they were eager to join up. So they were easier to be manipulated with the brainwave scanner. And so now they're using these abandoned mills, right? These mills that weren't making cars or steel or whatever. They're now manufacturing weapons and material for Cobra right underneath, the watchful eye of Uncle Sugar.
Yo, Joe!
And we see that if you look closely in this top panel, as the uncle is talking to what we'll find out is Law from the pit, from like Law and Order. Law is calling to try to reach Mutt and Junkyard because Order misses Junkyard. The Techno Viper and the Televiper, they have a Cobra Mood-O-Matic, and this is very much like the Psycho Pirates from DC. This is like the Psycho Man that the FF fight in the Microverse. He comes from the Microverse, and he has got the hate. Is it the Hate Monger? Why am I blanking? It's Psycho Man, I think. But he's got like the three buttons from the Kirby years, and then Byrne used them again too. Where he's got the is it just, maybe it's Fearmonger? Is that it? Yeah, Fearmonger, I think, because he's got like fear, hate, and love, and he's got the three buttons. Well, that's what they're doing here. So they've got the Cobra Mood-O-Matic, and depending on the mood, there's buttons that say joined a cult, old grudge, whiner or wine, and then the final two are covered by the Techno Viper's hand, so I'm not sure what the other are. But it's basically, it's kind of like emotional reactions. So they're not telling him what to say, but he presses the old grudge button, and so Uncle Jeff gets real pissy with Law and is like, you bothered me at work because you want two dogs to yap at each other? Drop dead, bubblehead. Your pals, they lit out, they left, blah 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 blah. So he gives Law the riot act, which is great. So Law has no idea where they're at, but he's gonna go watch 101 Dalmatians.
Yo, Joe!
And I gotta say, Mark Bright drawing Cobra Commander's hood, this should be the only way Cobra Commander's hood is drawn by every artist ever. I know there's controversy about whether they're using the hood or not, or sticking to the helmet. But if we ever get back to doing hood art on CC, I want every artist ever to take note that bright is the way to do it. And here's the trick: from ears up, it's his head. Nothing moves from the top of the head to the ears down. It's just the outline of a head. Absolutely. And once you get to his ears, that's when you start getting motion on the mask. Ears cutting across, because the top of the ears match with your eye line, right? So that cuts across the bridge of your nose. So you can put the motion into the hood from the eye line, from the eye under the eyelids down, from the top of the ears down. That's where you draw the motion in the hood. But everything above the top, though, has to stay it's like picture it like like it had an elastic band in it, like that tight to the head, because it just works. It really, really works. It really pops, man. Guys, open this book, and just look at the last few issues of Bright drawing him, Cobra Commander, in the hood. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And this page nailed it for me. That's what he's doing. He locks it down above the ears, almost as if he's wearing a headband, which might be part of the hood. It might be literally how he keeps it on his head so well. The action on the page is great. We find out that the Cobra Resistance is now making their move. So there's a bunch of explosions. They actually knock the windows out. They're not attacking the factory they're at, but they're attacking the area, and the blowback has knocked out windows at the factory. And you see that in multiple places, some HISS tanks and bugs have been blown up. Police headquarters has been raided. The brainwave scanner trailers have been firebombed. So there's a bunch of stuff going on right now all over Millville.
Yo, Joe!
Which we go to downtown Millville, and we see, and it's the street gangs who are teamed up with Mutt and Spirit and they're all making their moves. And we got great names here. We got Tiny and Raggedy Moof. Sure. Now, you know what this made me think of, and it's not just because I'm always thinking about Bruce Springsteen, because he is the greatest songwriter of our day. I know Hama was a big Springsteen fan, and nicknames like Tiny and Raggedy Moof feel like Asbury Park nicknames. They feel like absolute nicknames of people that Springsteen would have used in a song about hanging out at the boardwalk. The Raggedy Moof is a really, really weird name, but it just feels right. So Mutt is driving with Junkyard hanging out the window like an awesome dog. And they get a bug on their tail, and they actually want that bug to follow them.
Yo, Joe!
Because they go down a dark alley, and in a really nice bit of shadow work here, the bug driver has them in their sights. It's like a blind alley, and it's like, okay, we're going to smear these dudes. And then a shadow creeps over his head, and then he looks up, the shadow's still on his head, and then a safe drops from above. I'm presuming, well, no, let's see. The guy they pull out has a mustache. Okay, they murdered that driver. So he got crushed by a falling safe, like a big steel, like safe, like rob a safe kind of a safe.
Yo, Joe!
And, like out of an old cartoon, Spirit's on top, and Spirit looks great, and the gang's all loving it. And they're right. You were right, Spirit. That old safe full of scrap iron went through that bug like a hot knife through butter. And when you go to the third panel here, and the guys they're stripping the bug for parts and weapons and stuff, they're only pulling out one dude, and they're pulling out the dude with the mustache. So that front driver, he's dead. He is absolutely dead meat. So this is them filling us in on what they've been doing. This is very much like the other thing I've been watching recently, which is V, The Visitors. This is like the Resistance in the show V. That's what's happening in this book right now.
Yo, Joe!
And now we get some more of those speed lines to let's ramp the action back up a little bit. And they talked about that now dead deceased driver. Although maybe he's not deceased, because hold on. Maybe he's not deceased, because there's you see here in the fourth panel that there's actually 4 dudes. How many dudes were in this bug? There's 4 guys that are tied up. So there's that bug had a lot of dudes in it. But he mentioned calling in Mambas, and you get the Mamba heading in right now. And these great speed lines, a lot of action, and they get there and the action's over. So it's really awesome, because this first panel is like, hurry up, here come the Mambas. And then it just stops because all the action's done. Charlie 60 copy over. We get an overhead shot of the alley. The bug's blown up. There's no good guys still around. And then you have the bug drivers saying, "Don't just hover up there. Come down and cut us loose." So it's pretty nice.
Yo, Joe!
And now we're going to the Spikes gang hideout. Oh, my dog's decided to get excited. And we're catching up, and this is basically this is right now. Really, this gang is it's the G.I. Joe version of the Dreadnoks. They're excited. They're not drinking grape soda, but they're drinking soda. What I like about this a lot is this whole thing it's also very Red Dawn, and it's a commentary about the youth of America, the young people of the world going to war. And what it does to them. And Larry's doing this subtly without us realizing it, so we're seeing them all have fun and everything. And then we get the veterans here, Spirit specifically saying some of them enjoyed it a bit too much. And they say, I think this is Russ talking. He says, there's always a few who get their kicks from the danger and the violence that wears off really quick. We already got one guy with that 1,000-yard stare. It's our pal Raggedy Moof, showing all the signs of shell shock. And he says, that's combat. You either like it or it freezes your insides. Either way, you lose. He says, you saying we shouldn't have helped these kids fight back? And Spirit says, no. What I'm saying is, I guess Spirit was saying that earlier. What I'm saying is these kids can't ever go back to being kids again. So all of a sudden, you take this fun and serious, plot line, which, I've been enjoying the Millville stuff as much as anything. And then all of a sudden it turns into this treatise on sending kids to war, and it could be any war. It's not just, Vietnam War. It's what do we do to our 19-year-olds when this is their first, we send them into, shooting galleries like this. It's great. It's really great. And it really turned on a dime, this, Red Dawn-ish, V-ish subplot.
Yo, Joe!
Now, back in Sierra Gordo, we get the Joes and the October Guard. They can't go any further because there's a big old tree that's blocking the road. Now, the thing about this tree, it actually looks like it was chopped down deliberately. So they say aloud, as if on cue, who would want to do that? And here come a bunch of those Tucaros. And Roadblock knows because he was there last time. So he recognizes them. The indigenous Indians of the Sierra Gordo rainforests. We met with some of their tribal brothers when we came down here to rescue Dr. Burkhart. And the Russian says, we're highly trained professionals. We can deal with this pack of ignorant savages. And Roadblock's like, nah, I doubt it. Misha, these guys may wear paint and loincloths, but they're not stupid. And they get into a little are you scared argument with the Russians. And, Roadblock basically says, I know what these Tucaros can do. This is real stuff. So this is that moment where the Tucaros are, say, 10 meters away and they're inching towards them. So while they're getting closer, that's when our heroes have that in the movie. That's when they have that internal debate between themselves of saying, should we do this? No, go high, go low. That's what's happening here. It's nice.
Yo, Joe!
And Roadblock recognizes the 2 Dragunov sniper rifles that they're toting. It's the ones that Recondo threw into the river as an offering to the spirits who got killed and as soon as he says Recondo, this is a great piece of visual storytelling. So top two, for those of you not following along, there's 2 horizontal panels here. Top panel, Recondo or Roadblock and Misha, the Russian, are in black shadow closer to the camera, and the Tucaros are in full light and they're approaching the Joes, and that's Roadblock, and he's talking about Recondo. Then the second panel flips the camera 180 degrees, and now all the Tucaros are in full shadow closer to the camera, and the Joes and the guard are in full light. It's a nice quick flip, very fun little storytelling technique, and I appreciate it. And it's so fast because they interrupt when they hear Recondo. They know the name Recondo. Quick note what I would have loved, and it might not have worked, so I get it, but I would have loved when this camera flips and the guy says Recondo, to have the rest of the Tucaro conversation be translated into English with an asterisk and say translated from Tucaran, and then have the Joes, because then Dinah and Roadblock still have conversations here saying, Recondo's name certainly sets them a buzz, and have their dialogue not be in English. You know what I mean? Like have it be in I don't know what, Russian or maybe put that in, or maybe Vassar saying that's translated into Tucaran or something like that. I would have loved to have played with that. You know what I'm saying? Where they're just because the camera does such a quick flip here, I want to be in the Tucaro's head. I really do. And this little trick continues because now it goes back even further than just the Tucarans, and now we're in the shadow of the jungle. And now we hear someone off screen talking to us, and it's a guy, it's a Tucaran guy in khakis and a normal button-up shirt with glasses on, and he is he's speaking English. So he's educated from the outer world, and he's basically saying these are my family. You guys don't know, who are you to come here and interrupt in our lands?
Yo, Joe!
So he's going to be the translator and the arbiter of whether or not they get to live. Let's put it that way. So back in Rio Lindo, Darklon meets up with Destro and Baroness. Destro foregoing the mask entirely. So we're full on no mask Destro. Destro's quote unquote keeping an eye on his investments. and he knows everything that's going on. He knows that they're dealing with the Tucaros and all that stuff. But we learn that they're basically going to pillage the rainforest. So the Tucaros are going to be wiped out, whether the Joes, they work with the Joes, they don't work with the Joes. Eventually, their jungle is going to be destroyed. Now, before we flip, no, did I miss? Hold on a second. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I thought I may have, for some reason, my eyes were scanning over it. The reason that Tucara from the outside world accepted him is because he asked, he said, if you really know Commando, you'll know his real name and birthplace. So Roadblock answers, Danny Leclerc from Wheaton, Wisconsin, almost as if he's got a file card on him, which I loved. I absolutely loved. But that's what earned the trust of this outsider Tucaran. And he's not an outsider, but the Tucaran who had been educated in the white man world, so to speak. So that was a great little piece that basically Roadblock knew all about the file card. So now let's go to the next page. Yo, Joe! And another quick little hit. And I forgot to mention this last issue because I was gasping for air. G.I. Joe went back. G.I. Joe's no longer under Star Comics. Remember how we were pointing out that it was so weird that it was under Star, and then you had all these assassinations happening on the same page as, Star Comics for kids? It's last issue, they were back under the normal bullpen bulletins, and they are again this issue. So I'm assuming that whatever editorial shift that was, someone pointed out that it was a bad mix. So we're back under the normal bullpen bulletins. This is also the month where we're getting a lot of ads for the upcoming New York Comic Cons, or not New York, but comic conventions all over the country. So East Coast, Chicago, San Francisco, Atlanta, Miami, everywhere. So we're getting into con month and to start planning for that. But meanwhile, in New York City, we're following back up on Snake Eyes and Scarlet's sister, and Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes are getting the runaround from the doctor. Scarlet's sister said, she's pulling the plug, and she tells both of them to go away peaceably. There's nothing for you here anymore. We just disconnected Scarlet's life support. Yo, Joe! And that's it. That's all Snake Eyes can handle. He throws her sister at the nurse, kicks open the door. He rips off his face bandages, and he goes by her hospital side as they're screaming at him. And here it is, guys. The first words Snake Eyes ever uttered. He whispers, "Ska, ska," and he actually doesn't whisper it because it's not actually there's an exclamation mark. I remembered this as being more of a whisper, but it is not. He screams the name Scarlet. Like, it's Ska, ska, Scarlet. And he's holding her hand, and he's racked in agony. And if your heart is not bleeding for Snake Eyes, I don't know what's wrong with you. I will say this. It's kind of like the cat's out of the bag with his face, so now we're showing his face more. I thought he took hot coals in the face, guys. He just has a couple scars here. His face looks pretty good for taking hot coals in the face. So I don't know what's happening here. That's a little confusing. And his face does not look that bad. So why he would have to have the whole big face wrap on. So anyway. But it's still a powerful moment. I don't mean to take that away. This is still a really powerful moment, the one everyone remembered, of his first words being Scarlet, because he just loves her so much. And next issue, Amazing the Welkin. I don't know what that means, but I can't wait to find out. So we've got some letters here in Postbox from the Pit. Got a no prize entry from Ellen Gelman, withholding her address by request. Ryan Shantz, also not giving his address. And Andrew Allman from Barrington, Rhode Island. So there you go. So got some letters from those guys, and that's it, guys. We made it through. We made it through a whole month. I did not collapse lung or anything, and I'm happy to be back. Happy for you listeners so much. You guys mean so much to me, and I appreciate hearing from each and every one of you. And now you, Joe. And Joeing is half the battle.